Ben Affleck's 2010 Boston crime classic, The Town.
Should've stayed in the truck.
I could be a different person.
Is it a classic heist movie?
The Charlestown Bridge.
They're going for the bridge!
And is it better than 2006's The Departed?
Grow up!
Feel free to like and subscribe, and let's find out. The story of a Charlestown bank robber and his crew. The Town reinvigorated Affleck's career and helped make Jeremy Renner's. The Town garnered Renner a Best Supporting Actor Oscar nomination.
What? You heard me?
And brought a more authentic portrayal to the city of Boston. So first and foremost, in terms of what makes it great, mainly, it's a slick heist movie that's very well executed.
Heisting banks is a trade in Charlestown.
Number one. Number two, the cast. A good amount of the cast are from Boston/New England. Jeremy Renner may not be from that neck of the woods, but his performance in terms of persona was so brilliant.
Like you care about Shine? Come on now.
You know what your problem is?
What?
You think you're better than people.
He brings so much.
But I waited 9 years in Walpole for you, motherfucker. Just 9 years, that's all.
In addition to Affleck,
I like to have a good cry at the nail salon. So open right up.
the other two guys from the heist crew are both kind of Boston working class Irish guys. So the cast was brilliant. Not to mention John Hamm as the FBI agent who's on their case.
You're here today, so I could personally tell you that you are going to die in federal prison.
Rebecca Hall as the love interest who's caught in the bank.
A few days ago, my bank was robbed. Why did you do this to me?
Where I would never hurt you.
Blake Lively as the sister Chris, the sister of the Gem character played by Jeremy Renner.
In Somalia, started talking when I was my daughter.
Very well acted in terms of the local kind of working class. I don't want to use the word promiscuous, but the girl who's very good looking but has a few problems upstairs.
Why the f can't I change? I could be a different person.
Single mother, etc. Basically, you have characters who are from Boston/New England, or the actors that they got that were not from Boston brought such a great persona and performance to the role that it's just this wonderful collaboration cast.
Offline.
The other thing is the way that the movie uses the film location of Boston, the way it's filmed on location, the way they've captured different parts of the city, Charlestown, you know, the chase in the North End in Boston's historical Italian district, the North End. More than a lot of other Boston movies, this really makes the most of Boston as an on-location setting. On that note of Boston, the setting, the movie itself feels way more like you as a viewer are watching the city of Boston rather than a cinematic interpretation of Boston. For example, of course, the great Departed.
You're a black guy in Boston.
What are you drinking?
A cranberry juice.
What do you get, your period?
On this video, we're going to make a comparison of The Departed and The Town.
What? Get the f out of here.
Let's just start with the essence of it. Ben Affleck brought authenticity to The Town. The Departed brings Hollywood to The Town.
Allegedly.
Jack Nicholson brings Tinseltown to Beantown.
Do you know who I am? Blowjob!
The Town is a more meat and potatoes direct Boston movie. The Departed is great, but it's way more, forgive me for saying, of a wanky movie. It's using Boston to wank itself. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad product, it just means there's a difference.
Yeah, I'm blown the assistant manager. Am I smart now?
Departed, of course, isn't bad, it's great, but it's a little bit more, it's more masturbatory than The Town.
Blowjob!
Around the time The Town came out, Affleck was in his post-J-Lo, post-Good Will Hunting, post all of that stuff. Affleck wanted to say, hey, I just want to go back to making movies that I love. He'd done Gone Baby Gone in what, 07, 08, which was a more gritty portrayal of the Dorchester district of Boston. Then he wanted to come to Charlestown and do a, as authentic as he could, realistic depiction of bank robbers from the historically Irish American working class district of Charlestown. I think he really put a lot of effort into making a real Boston movie. His Boston is a more lived in Boston. You're depicting yuppies moving into a historically Irish American neighborhood.
All you see are yuppies down here.
Plus newer ethnic groups moving in.
In Somalia, started talking when I was my daughter.
Whereas The Departed's Boston is a vessel and a platform for sexy Hollywood movie making, where the actors have kind of pseudo JFK accents.
I cannot do it overnight. I think we can do better.
First of all, and secondly, they weren't even necessarily going to cast any Bostonians.
Who the f are you? I'm the guy who does his job.
You must be the other guy.
Initially, Matt Damon's role in The Departed was set to be played by Brad Pitt.
You like coming to work dressed like you're going to invade Poland.
Ray Liotta was initially meant to play the Mark Wahlberg character.
You little f***ing snake.
If you took those two out of it, it would really hinder its Bostonian authenticity even more.
I think we can do better.
This movie never cared about Boston as much as it cared about making a really well-made, slick, kind of crime remake of the Chinese movie Infernal Affairs or whatever. Ben Affleck did make quite a point of saying he wanted Boston social realism, like the movie Gomorrah.
The social realism aspect of it, really strong sense of place. There's a movie Gomorrah that was an Italian movie.
Ultimately, it's a kind of textbook heist movie, but using the backdrop of social realism. It's a heist movie. Ben Affleck is the sort of good guy bank robber who should have been a hockey player, but he got injured and he had problems, that his mum left, that his dad was already an armed robber from Charlestown, so what do you expect him to do? But if his circumstances were different, he never would have gone that path. But he's actually a nicer guy than John Hamm. Point is, it's a real heist type film. But again, he wanted the milieu of it to have that social realism feel. So I'm not going to say he's having his cake and eat it, but when he says he wanted it to be like Gomorrah and this and that, to me, the only thing is the bit where the Chris character...
The Jamaicans started.
What Jamaican?
And Somalians started talking when I was with my daughter.
The Somalians. But you don't even see any Somali characters in the movie. You just hear the story of it. Whereas in Gomorrah, you see the two young punky Neapolitan kids rob the Nigerian drug dealers. So I feel like he put that one line in
And Somalians started talking
to kind of qualify it. It's like Gomorrah. For me, it would have been nice to see the Somalians beefing with Chrissy.
The Jamaicans started.
What Jamaican?
Call us Jamaican.
And Somalians started talking. They think there's no more serious white people in Charlestown.
They didn't put that in. That's fine. It's a textbook bank heist film, but they put the backdrop as a more authentic 2010 Boston. I love Ben Affleck. His depiction of a contemporary Boston made way more sense than bloody Leonardo DiCaprio.
Hey, you fellas come from Providence?
Beating up two Italians
Delivering cannolis or something?
in an Indian convenience store and saying, what, can't you find any cannolis back in Providence or the North End?
Let's not cry over spilled guineas.
Do you know the Dago?
For me, the John Hamm versus Mark Wahlberg comparison is a very interesting comparison because they're both essentially playing prick cops.
If it were up to me, I would personally asphyxiate this halfwit and end this story with a bag on your head.
You Mass Boston, which happens to
South
be
Boston?
Oh, you're a fucking genius, huh? Who forged your transcript, dickhead?
John Hamm is the more two-dimensional but really well-done asshole law enforcement agent.
Pitiable, misguided Irish omerta.
Whereas Wahlberg brings this kind of amazing but brief performance.
What's the matter, smart ass? You don't know any fucking Shakespeare?
He's just a pissed off cop.
Hey, asshole, he can't help you.
He seems like someone who's pissed off from birth. His performance is so electric, albeit he just filmed for a few days, and albeit Mark Wahlberg has a terrible case of having a bad hair day in this film. Weren't you once upon a time Marky Mark?
The ballhead crew.
So is that your New Year's resolution to keep your pants on?
He looks like a mortgage broker from Ipswich. Mark Wahlberg is so good in this performance. What De Niro is to New York, he's going to be that to Boston. That's what you thought with The Departed, with that brief performance. But then he partly disappeared from those type of roles. The hairdo thing, you're like, this is the guy who used to be Marky Mark.
Interrogated because the skin was brown.
This is the guy whose brother in New Kids on the Block was the one who wanted to totally change New Kids on the Block from this marketable boy band to this fake ghetto hip hop thing. How can you go from all that I wanted was you to then all of a sudden, all that I wanted was you. You know what I'm saying? You're like, what? All that I needed was you. It was Mark Wahlberg and Donnie Wahlberg. They New Kids on the Block. So I'm like, how could you be this guy obsessed with being urban, yeah, to then become this guy with a stupid mortgage broker from Ipswich hairdo? But the exclusive info is at the same time Wahlberg was briefly filming his part in The Departed, he was simultaneously filming Invincible, set in the 70s. And hence, he couldn't cut it off, so he had to comb it down. His badass Boston persona does not match his Norris from Norwich mortgage broker hairdo. But now we know because of Invincible. In terms of Wahlberg versus Renner, both seem to have a vendetta against the world. Both the Wahlberg character in The Departed and the Renner character in The Town.
You don't gotta thank me. But you're not walking away.
You know what? Initially, Wahlberg was meant to play that role, but he was actually filming The Fighter at the time.
Yeah, they're both in my corner.
Which was his actual kind of Boston/Massachusetts Irish working class film.
I finally got a good thing going for me, and you can't be happy for me. Why? I'm Irish American.
I'm very thankful that Mark Wahlberg with Christian Bale went on to do The Fighter, thus allowing Affleck to actually cast Renner in this role.
You're a bank manager. Sounds fun. What bank?
9 out of 10 times, Mark Wahlberg should have played the role of Jem in The Town. But this is the 1 out of 10 times where you bring Renner into the equation. No one else but Renner.
Am I smart now?
Renner made that role, and thus what he does is makes the movie The Town, to me at least, that much more tragic. He's not a good dude, but you just get this sense of humanity where every time I see Renner, I'm like, that's the antisocial kid from school.
Officer.
Teachers, when we're growing up,
Offline.
you know, they used to always say, hey, you can have this one.
Who went on to be a villain.
He's a real gem.
He seems like someone that's massive antisocial personality, but never had the guidance.
I surrender! I surrender!
He's a human being that's a bad guy rather than just the devil. That's my take on Renner. The movie The Fighter was great for a Massachusetts, New England movie. So granted, I think Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg maybe lost themselves in that film thinking it was more of an important movie than it actually was.
One of the best experiences I've had, getting to play Dickie, local legend.
We get to depict the true story of Irish Mickey Ward.
Dickie and Mickey, where's my quacker?
On me, man, the guy's just fantastic.
You know, the most important story in the history of mankind, right?
He up there, Dickie's out there somewhere, mate. Hey, mate, you're the best.
It's not the greatest film ever, but it is a solid, good film. I'm happy Christian Bale got the Oscar.
Bloody hell.
Though at the same time, Renner was nominated, so for me it's kind of bittersweet. I love Christian Bale, I love Jeremy Renner. Christian Bale deserved the Best Supporting Oscar for The Fighter, but for me, Renner, he brought a chilling tragedy of someone who's become a bad person. For me, Pete Postlethwaite as the kind of local crime guy from Charlestown.
You're gonna do what I ask.
If he's a crime boss, he's a very low-level crime boss.
He worked for me for years.
His performance
Years.
versus, as we know, the fake Whitey Bulger, which is Jack Nicholson playing Frank Costello, clearly based on the Whitey Bulger character. Postlethwaite has this sinister Irish persona.
If there's a heaven, son, she ain't in it.
And we can prove everything we say.
Goody. You'll go to heaven one day. You'll go to heaven anyway. You make sure you're right.
Which to me is more Bulger-esque.
All nice guys go to heaven.
I see you're gonna assist me to get there, are you?
Oh, no. You're saying that, not me.
Because Bulger ultimately was just a bad dude and didn't give a shit about anyone. Whereas, of course, the depiction by Nicholson is the guy is a complete monster. But it's all this flamboyant, jazzy stuff, whereas there's zero flamboyance with Postlethwaite.
I hear you got a nice, sweet new girlfriend.
And I think that's closer to a real-life Irish crime boss from Boston versus a jazzy Hollywood interpretation.
This ain't reality TV!
I love Nicholson in that film on the one hand. On the other hand, he Hollywoods it up to the max, yeah? So Nicholson versus Postlethwaite. Nicholson was more grand, but Postlethwaite was a real unpretentious, direct, I don't give a toss Irish kind of bad guy performance.
How's it going, son?
Another tremendous example of The Departed bringing Tinseltown to the Beantown. Jack Nicholson's presence on the set of The Departed. Not only did he refuse to wear a Boston Red Sox hat, on top of that he made everyone on the set not wear Boston Celtics gear. So as you can see, yeah.
Tiny the bird behind the back to Parrot.
Everyone on set couldn't wear Celtics gear. And I'm like, why? Because he's such a big Lakers fan.
Jack Nicholson does not have as good a seat here in Boston as he does in LA. Cooper goes for three. It's over.
My friend, you're an actor. You're acting. This isn't real life.
This ain't reality TV!
No one can wear Celtics gear on set and hence in the movie because he's a Laker fan. I'm like, you really are bringing Hollywood to Boston as opposed to trying to bring Boston as it is to the big screen.
That's the break himself. Goes by Seasting on the cut. McHale.
Which is hence why in The Town you see like the odd scene where Renner's got pretend Celtics gear on, and then the rest of the time he's just got really kind of touristy stuff like Irish pub written on his t-shirt. Seeing him just with that one bit with pretend Celtics gear on is exacerbated by Jack Nicholson's masturbatory BS in The Departed. He made the whole cast, everyone on set not wear Celtics gear, and I'm like, hold on a minute, you're being such a solo artist when the legacy of Boston, especially sports, to me, is the 80s Celtics, Larry Bird, one of the most collaborative, cooperative teams you can imagine.
We'll have another crack at it. Off to Roby. Bird, very good ball. Oh, how about that pass?
Nicholson selfishly preventing everyone from wearing Celtics gear because he's a Lakers fan. You are from New Jersey, not LA. Larry Bird himself said his favourite teammate was actually DJ, who's from Compton.
Smartest player you ever played with?
Dennis Johnson.
Best player you ever played with?
Probably Dennis Johnson.
In quickly. Does to Lambeer. Stolen by Bird on the cut to DJ. Yeah!
From Boston?
So, how are you going to have some of the best stars to play for the Celtics be from Inglewood and Compton, right? Then Jack the Lad wants to act as if the Boston Celtics don't even exist. He wasn't taking his craft that seriously, he was just wanking himself. At least with the movie Black Mass.
Just saying.
We have actual references to the Celtics team and they mention Tiny Archibald and stuff.
You know what, short arms? Need Tiny Archibald and shut up.
Bird, off to Tiny Archibald. Back to Larry Bird. Baseline Maxwell, and Maxwell begins.
And the town featuring both Boston Red Sox gear and a heist at Fenway Park demonstrates what an actual Boston movie looks like.
Steps up to the plate, you know, he's got that weird stand.
Yeah.
Parrish with 5. Larry Bird with a rebound. Oh, is it physical? Bird again. 3. It's over.
In terms of Rebecca Hall and Blake Lively in The Town versus Vera Farmiga in The Departed, I'm just going to say this. Vera Farmiga in The Departed starts out a very interesting female character. She has great chemistry with the Matt Damon character.
I'm one more up.
Oh, fancy policeman.
At the beginning.
I'm actually going to law school also.
Listen, I went to UMass. I wasn't insulting you.
More chemistry, should I say, than the Minnie Driver character and Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting.
I'm a detective, I'll find him. No, sir, I'm just joking. I need the guy. That helps.
Nice to meet you, Madeline.
Well, you know what Freud said about the Irish. You are trouble.
But then, as the movie progresses, she just becomes this generic female character that exists to be this kind of love triangle between Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio. Then everything about her loses its interesting nature and it just turns into this whole kind of I am a female who exists in the movie so that this isn't just a quasi-Boston sausage fest. Hey. Rebecca Hall in The Town, for me, she seems like a far better match than the type of women Ben Affleck goes out with in real life.
A lot of what they say is exaggerated.
Blake Lively, what can I say other than they found someone who's from California, but they got her to really pull off this sense of a white working class chick who's like the local, forgive me for saying the local tart.
Boys like me.
She could be from anywhere, but when you watch it, she feels organic to this authentic Boston street culture at the end of its time.
In Somalia and started talking when I was my daughter.
Vera Farmiga overall could have been better than both Rebecca Hall and Lively, but the way her character just gets diluted into nothingness, Rebecca Hall and Blake Lively brought more of a good female characterization to The Town than unfortunately Vera Farmiga did at the end. In conclusion, I'd say The Departed is a greater movie than The Town, but in terms of a finished product bringing Boston to the screen, The Town is a better movie. The thing with The Departed is you got to be in the right mood to see that, because certain times you turn it on, you're like, oh, I can't even be bothered, all this too much haru.
What?
From Leonardo DiCaprio shouting,
Is that what you guys want?
to Jack Nicholson showing off.
See anything you like.
You gotta be in the right mood for it. Whereas The Town, I'll put it to you like this. Personally, I'm gonna say this, I like the director's cut of The Town more than the theatrical cut, because it just adds more to it.
Would I ask you out if I thought you were a suspect?
I might be saying something already.
Affleck was in his prime in The Town, the Jeremy Renner performance, the Blake Lively performance, John Hamm. Overall, I'm gonna pick The Town over The Departed. The Departed, 8.0, The Town, 7.8. However, in terms of watchability, I would actually go with The Town, especially, like I say, especially the extended cut.
You know them Dominican kids that are always out there starting trouble?
So that's my basic Bostonian movie review take. If you've made it to the end of this, feel free to like and subscribe. And as Ben Affleck says at the end of The Town,
I know I'll see you again. This side or the other.